Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali on TV1.
And a very good evening to you and a warm welcome to Newsline Live. My guest this evening is Dr. Ravindranath Dabare, who is, of course, apart from being an attorney at law, he's a President's Counsel, I think.
No.
Not yet. Attorney at law. He's
Senior attorney.
Senior attorney at law. He's also the chairman of the Centre for Environmental Justice. Very good evening to you, Dr. Dabare. Welcome to the program.
Good evening to you all.
We spoke probably over a year ago now, and we spoke about the Express Pearl disaster. Now we read in the context of Sri Lanka's dwindling and right down the bottom balance of the reserves, foreign exchange reserves, and the big, long, hard tussle to get 2.9 billion facility from the IMF. Sri Lanka is now, according to reports, scrambling for the compensation of $6.4 billion, up to that amount. But nothing seems to have been done, is what I hear. How true is that, Dr. Dabare? Nothing has been done so far, really?
Yes, because the Sri Lankan authorities have filed a criminal lawsuit against the wrongdoers, but civil lawsuit, which is to be instituted for the claim of civil compensation or the damage compensation, has not so far been filed. Even yesterday there were media reports that the relevant authorities were going to file it in Singapore jurisdiction, but it was not filed yesterday. Even when we inquired from the relevant authorities, we were told that they are going to file it today. But until 8 p.m., I contacted the relevant authorities of the MIPA, that means Marine Environment Protection Authority. But so far they have not informed about any litigation filed in the Singapore or in Sri Lankan jurisdiction to claim the relevant compensation or due compensation, I must say.
Now, would that involve the government of Sri Lanka instructing solicitors in Singapore to represent them?
Because if we are filing a lawsuit in Singapore, our lawyers can't appear in the Singapore courts.
Right.
We have to retain Singapore lawyers, and so far we have been informed, or there are media reports that the Sri Lankan authorities have already allocated 4.5 million US dollars as an advance payment for the litigation as the litigation cost in the Singapore.
So they've already they already know who's going to represent them in Singapore.
Yes, they have already retained lawyers according to the reports, but we are not aware the names of the lawyers, name of the law firm. But relevant authorities have revealed that they have retained lawyers from Singapore on the instructions of Australian legal firm.
What is the information that you have, Dr. Dabare? Why do you think there is a delay? Do you think that there is a link to this claim made by our Minister of Justice that somebody has been paid an amount of money and he's asked for an investigation? Do you think this is actually possible, that this delay is related to the payment of some money?
Actually, anybody who is any human being can assume that there is some there could be some connection, because this is a disaster that has taken place or that took place in the sea, or on the sea. The evidence are on the seabed, and when the evidence are on the seabed and on the seashore, it has to be collected and assessed as soon as possible, and the lawsuit has to be filed. At least the initial claim has to be filed, because otherwise it will be buried under the seabed and it will be buried under the seashore. There will be no evidence left when the time goes on. So even there is a prescriptive time period given by the law.
Yeah.
But what should have been done is to file the lawsuit at the earliest possible, so that the evidence what is left can be used to maximize the compensation due to Sri Lanka. But there has been a unexplainable delay, and even the expert committee has now come forward and stated that they were not given adequate facilities, they were not even granted permission to read the wreck, and even they were not given the other requirements to complete the damage assessment.
So who is withholding the visit to the wreck?
Even as far as I was informed, even day before yesterday, the Sri Lankan legal experts and the authorities have tried to reach the remaining portion of the wreck.
Yeah.
But the ship owners and the relevant insurance companies have refused the access. Now it has been reported to the Parliamentary Sectorial Committee today, and Parliamentary Sectorial Committee today instructed the NARA to take immediate steps to facilitate the Sri Lankan experts to obtain samples from the wreck.
Now, is there any legal method where the ship's owners and its agents or representatives can actually preclude a government agency from reaching the wreck and inspecting it? Because it's still in Sri Lankan waters.
I don't know any legal regime or any legal provision which can preclude the Sri Lankan authorities or Sri Lankans reaching and obtaining the relevant samples, because not the general layman, it's the Sri Lankan authorities who have tried it. Because this even the wreck is still in our territorial waters, where the local law applies.
So it seems that the ship's owners and its agents and representatives are all acting with some sort of impunity. Where does this impunity derive from?
That is also, that's why we are questioning, because they are acting, they are performing high-handed act and giving high-handed orders which they are not permitted to do. Because
and who's helping the official side to try and reach the wreck? Is it the Sri Lankan Navy?
Sri Lankan, even the main authority and the main Sri Lankan entity which is permitted to facilitate under the law is the NARA, National Aquatic Resources Agency.
Yeah.
And the expert team is going or reaching the wreck with the NARA team.
Right.
And they have attempted so far, even up to now, they have failed.
And NARA would be listed under which ministry then?
I can't say exactly, but it should come under the Ministry of Fisheries.
Right. So that is as it is. Now, so long now since the disaster happened, do we now have a better idea of the extent of the damage to our environment?
No, actually the environment damage has to be assessed continuously, because there had been an initial assessment. Now recently there has had been another assessment done by the or made by the expert committee. This $6.4 billion amount is actually the amount assessed by the expert committee up to last date of November 2022. So after that it has to be increased, because this type of menace or this type of disaster, the damage caused by this type of an incident can be calculated or should be calculated for a continuous calculated continuously for a considerable time period to assess the final damage. But the expert committee has not so far calculated the final damage, but the interim damage they have calculated up to now amounts to $6.4 billion. It has to be exceeded the 6.4 billion when the final damage assessment.
So the interim amount is only 6.4 billion.
6.4 billion.
What about the 750 million that was apparently paid right at the beginning for cleaning up?
That is not the 750 million is Sri Lankan rupees, not the dollars.
Oh, I see. Okay. So that was paid just
the amount of the dollars so far paid, the total amount paid not exceed even 10 million US dollars.
Less than 10 million?
Less than 10 million US dollars.
So which is a mere pittance,
yes,
compared to the 6.4 billion. And what can be done? What can you do as the chairperson of
no, actually now there is a huge argument about the jurisdiction of litigation, because even Sri Lankan expert and even the former chairperson of the MIPA and even the incumbent chairperson of the MIPA and the expert committee appointed by the MIPA and the, almost all the Sri Lankan experts are of the view that the case has to be instituted in Sri Lankan jurisdiction. But the cabinet has taken a decision on the instruction of EG or some other government lawyers that the case has to be instituted in Singapore.
Right.
Now, even this matter was discussed even today in the Parliament in the Environmental Sectorial Committee.
Yeah.
And the majority of the committee members are of the view that case should have been filed in the Sri Lankan jurisdiction, because there are some limitation clauses, caps, that can be applied if the litigation is instituted outside the Sri Lankan jurisdiction.
Do you, in your sort of considered opinion, has that time passed now? Now in Singapore, if you're looking at it from a Singapore litigation?
The time, actually there is no such thing, because the time prescription time period is there still up to 18th May.
Right.
But my view is filing our view or the majority expert, the view of the majority experts, the filing the case in the Singapore won't help us or won't be able, if we file the case in Singapore, we won't be able to obtain the expected damages, because so far there had been some litigations filed by the shipping company in UK limiting the damage that has to be paid to Sri Lankan authorities if a lawsuit is filed, because that cap which has been imposed by English court is 19.5 million sterling pounds.
Again, a pittance compared to $6.4 billion.
Yes.
So will that have an impact on the, if we eventually file in Singapore, will that have an impact?
That has to be, there has to be an impact, because we ultimately we have spent for the cleaning up, we have to spend for the lawyers' fees, and we won't get anything. Sometimes we have to pay out of our pockets.
On that note, let's go for a quick break and take a peek at this evening's headlines from the News First Primetime News team. We'll see you on the other side of the break with Dr. Ravindranath Dabare from the CEJ.
News First Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali on TV1.
Complete report of the Presidential Commission of Inquiry into the Easter Sunday attacks directed to the Catholic Bishops' Conference of Sri Lanka.
බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා ඒ බෙලුම් වල අන්තර්ගත සියල්ල ඒ ආකාරයෙන්ම ඒ CD තැටිවල අඩංගු වෙයි කියලා.
What happened to the files given separately to ex-President Gotabaya by the Presidential Commission of Inquiry? Questions former head of state Sirisena.
අන්න ඒව දෙන්න ඔය එළියට. එතකොට අපිටත් බලා ගන්න පුළුවන් මොනවද මේවා තියෙන්නේ කියලා.
Hartal sweeps across the north and east against the proposed anti-terrorism bill. Who solicited a bribe from the Express Pearl claim? Justice Minister reveals names to Parliament. University teachers to begin A-level paper marking after talks with the President. Bima reveals of an international plan to destabilize the government.
Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali on TV1.
And welcome back to Newsline Live. I'm in conversation with Dr. Ravindranath Dabare from the CEJ. Thank you very much for your questions, by the way, by SMS or WhatsApp 0772 300 305. Card ought to be coming up on your screen. If it's not, 0772 300 305. We have a question from a viewer, several questions actually. It says here, the case being filed, including the FR and the attention, is so much on the pollution aspect, which is a civil matter. What is your opinion about, one, the ship owners not disclosing about the nitric acid leak before coming to anchorage, reporting the leak 2 hours after coming into anchorage when they knew about the leak for over 10 days, deletion of data, and all this seems to be criminal intent and criminal negligence. So are there criminal proceedings in this regard, or will there be?
Yes, as far as we are as far as we are aware, the Attorney General Department of this country has filed criminal lawsuit against the ship owner.
Right.
And but that is also only under the MIP Act. But we are of the view, in addition to the MIP Act, the ship owners and the shipping company has violated number of other laws, including the Penal Code and Merchant Shipping Act, because they have brought in unseaworthy cargo. It is a criminal offence and violation of the section 205 of the Merchant Shipping Act.
So who can be held responsible then?
The ship owner and the master of the ship, they should be held responsible under the criminal law.
But by now, the master of the ship must have left the country.
Yes, maybe.
So we're going after.
Yeah, yes. That's even there has to be lawsuit filed under the National Environment Act for the pollution of our air. And even there has to be a lawsuit under the Fauna and Flora Protection Act for our polluting our marine reserves. Likewise, they have violated number of laws, not only the MIP Act. So there should, but nobody other than the Attorney General Department is entitled to file, or government agencies entitled to file criminal lawsuits against the polluters or against the offenders. But being a citizen organization and a civil organization, Center for Environmental Justice filed a fundamental right action against the shipping company and the state parties, those who have violated the law.
Right.
We were the first party to file a case in the Sri Lankan jurisdiction, and we filed the Center for Environmental Justice filed our lawsuit on 2nd June. That means not even the lapse of 2 weeks.
Right.
Within 12 days we filed the lawsuit, and in our lawsuit the shipping company is a party. Shipping company is represented by a lawyer, and we have even sought the court orders to appoint a presidential investigation commission to inquire into the lapses of the state officials, and even we have even sought court intervention to file to punish the state officials under the penal law for their negligence and their.
And has all of this resulted in some progress?
Yes, we have already received the leave to proceed from the Supreme Court, and it is to be argued on the next date.
Right. We have not subscribed to the Marine Limitation Act, so we can claim what we want, but Singapore has subscribed, so our claim will be limited. Knowing this, why did we go to Singapore?
That's why we have been adverting from the very beginning to the Sri Lankan authorities that we should not file a lawsuit in the Singapore, because the amount of compensation that we can obtain is comparatively very low if we file a lawsuit in Sri Lanka, because we can obtain the maximum amount. Even we filed our lawsuit under the polluter pays principle, because citizens are entitled to file lawsuit under the polluter pays principle, because citizens' rights are affected, the rights of the future generations are affected. Therefore, we went to the courts, but if in any case if the government fails, now we as citizens have come forward to try and get the compensation to the government.
And you know, all these programs we do, a lot of them focuses on the need to earn dollars and to get dollars into this country. So we then had, a couple of weeks ago, it's been going on in the news, this monkey business. We had ministers saying that we're going to export so many monkeys to China, wherever. So there's this monkey business. Then we have the Minister of Justice telling us that there was some amount of money purportedly paid to delay the whole process of the claim against Express Pearl. 6.4 billion. All the time we've been fighting and, you know, paying increased taxes and whatever, all these stringent conditions imposed by the IMF, just to get 2.9 billion, which is actually a loan.
Yes.
Which we have to repay. So,
but this is what we owe and what we should.
This is us.
This is our money. Yeah, our money. We don't have to repay.
Exactly. So, what do you think? Do you think there's some monkey business going on here rather than in the export of monkeys?
Yes, there are a lot of monkeys to be exported to China, even without obtaining any money, because they are wasting and destroying our resources.
So it might be a good idea to send those people responsible for stymieing our efforts to get this minimum $6.4 billion in compensation for the damage and so on that's done to our environment. We might as well send these people who are involved in that monkey business, export them to anywhere they'd like to have them.
Yeah, we don't have to ask for money.
We don't need money. Yes, they can have it. Do you think we should pay the fare as well, the passage? But you know, the critical point here, Dr. Dabare, is that this is a minimum of 6.4 billion. That's the minimum, that's the critical point here, isn't it?
Yes, because this is only an interim damage assessment. Further damage assessment has to be done. That's why the expert committee is insisting to reach the wreck and obtain samples from the wreck which are lying on the wreck. Even some of the samples which are in the fridges of the authorities have not so far been sent to foreign laboratories, because amber bottles, they say that they don't have money to obtain amber bottles to send the samples to foreign countries, independent countries. But they have money to pay. They have money, $4.5 million US to pay to litigate outside the jurisdiction.
But this is all, it's so astounding that it's laughable if it's not it's such a serious matter. But what, you know, it's absolutely crazy. The longer you leave it, the evidence is going to disappear.
Yes, even the living materials, even the lifespan of all these living materials inside a fridge or freezer sometimes may be a limited time period. By sending those samples after the lifespan is over, or they become useless, will not be going to benefit us, because such a simple thing. Now, even today, even the sectorial committee, this matter was taken up, because some authorities expressed their views and requested money to buy amber bottles
to put the samples,
and send it to independent laboratories to check, assess the damage.
Do you feel in your role as the chairperson of the CEJ, the Center for Environmental Justice, do you feel that there is a concerted effort at delaying this process. Do you feel that?
There has to be not only myself, even the Minister of Justice and even the incumbent chairman of the MIPA has filed complaints in the CID that there are allegations against some persons for purposely delaying the litigation process so that the ship owners and the insurance companies are benefited.
So where's the block coming from? Where is this block? Where do you think the block is?
Actually, I can't say exactly from where this block comes, but
No.
it is the duty of the Criminal Investigation Department to investigate these allegations thoroughly and expose the parties, those who are blocking the compensation due to our country, our people, and not only to the existing generation, but also the rights of the future generations are also violated and affected by those illegal and coveted acts.
And therefore, ladies and gentlemen, it appears to me that, as was pointed out on Newsline by a diplomat who appeared on our program, the government of Sri Lanka hasn't done anything substantial. One, about the bond scam, the so-called bond scam. Two, the Easter tragedy. No need to remind you that 272 people died and over 500 people had life-changing injuries and so on. Thirdly, the 9th of May incident, where people left temple trees, went along quite easily to Golface and attacked peaceful protesters. And the fourth one now, the Express Pearl disaster, the claim for $6.4 billion, minimum value, $6.4 billion, nothing has been done apart from a whole series of delays. And we have people like Dr. Ravindranath Dabare who are fighting like no other way to try and get this compensation. What can we do, Dr. Dabare? How can this block be unblocked, and how can we move forward? And the time is running out, obviously.
Yes, actually, according to the law, the state or the MIPA has the authority to file a case, civil lawsuit against the polluters or against the party, those who were responsible for committing this disaster or this disaster of this magnitude. But even this evening, the party who should litigate, the MIPA, when I inquired from the MIPA, they say they are not aware whether the lawsuit which is going to be filed in the Singapore is filed in their name or not.
My goodness. My goodness.
That is the situation.
Have you had any inside information about this money that's supposed to have gone to somebody in some outfit, somebody in Canada?
Yeah, I don't know, but there are a lot of assumptions. But we, being responsible citizens and attorneys at laws, we can't, without completing the investigations, we can't point out or we can't name the persons. But there should be somebody who is delaying, definitely. Otherwise, there cannot be any inordinate delay of this nature, because even for a simple incident, you know that our police, before the crime scene is affected or polluted, they come and obtain the evidence and file the lawsuit. Even our police can file a lawsuit within a few weeks when an incident of any incident or any criminal offence is committed. But the whole government, we can't even think of, even assume why, with all the effort of large number of government officials, from why this cannot be concluded, why the civil lawsuit cannot be concluded even after 23 months.
Goodness me. Dr. Ravindranath Dabare, thank you very much for being on Newsline Live. It's now time for the prime time news. Take care, have a great evening as much as you can, and as always, God bless you all.